It is Wednesday, September 30th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was yet another no jujitsu, get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday. Unfortunately, I did not make my way over just to observe, of course, at this point, because I'm still kind of injured. And it's mostly an impact injury and a cut, or a series of cuts, rather. I took a kind of a serious fall over at one of the lakes recently, because when they're draining the lakes, there's always mud on the bottom of the lake, because it was soaked in water for 6 months or whatever. Anyway, point being that I wasn't watching myself or something, and I slipped and fell and got a massive cut on my calf. And it wasn't bad enough to stitch, according to the doctors. But at the same time, it is bad enough that I didn't want to be getting onto the mat, have somebody locked down with like an ankle lock on me or something like that, and crank on it. And, no. And that wasn't the only impact point too. I had another one at my knee and also at my hip. So, I mean, it was a pretty conclusive fall. I fell flat, and it was on really, really sharp rocks too. So it was not good. Anyway, point being that I did not manage to make it to Jiu-Jitsu today. Although I did manage to squeak in just a teeny tiny bit of cardio. And I want to start rolling out the mat again. I'd had about 2 months, maybe 3 months of no physical jiu-jitsu between when my school closed. Or I don't know. It was closer to like 4, maybe even 5 months. And I've had a little bit of a challenge getting back to it, but at the same time, I feel that where I'm at right now is like 2, maybe 3 steps below where I was at the other school. And it's just been due to interruptions. The fact of the matter is that I think I'm actually even in better shape now than when I was at the other place. How that works out, I don't know. I'm only going 3 days a week. But I don't know. I feel like I'm a little bit leaner than when I was over at NWMA. And so, yeah. But at the same time, I'm feeling a little quicker too. And it might just be that I'm not working with the impediment of the gi. And I noticed that quite a bit when I came over to the 10th Planet Gym once before the whole COVID bullshit. And it was a lot of fun. But I noticed that I was able to move a lot faster without a gi on. And as much as I get comfort from wearing the gi. I mean, there's something about the gi that, it feels like, I'm covered with this rope thing that, I could just reach around your neck and grab it tight and I don't know how to explain it. Once you start using your clothing as a weapon, it kind of changes things, and especially when the clothing itself is designed specifically to be used as a weapon, and a deadly one at that. But it's like after a while, you get used to using it to that extent, and without it, it's a whole different game of jiu-jitsu. Although I am finding that I feel like I'm adjusting well to it. I rolled with this one guy the other day, and I don't know if it was just I was being over competitive or whatever, and that happens with me. I get excited, man. I mean, go for my arm, I want to go for yours, and so like I said, I could have just been going a little bit too hard, over competitive as it may be. I gotta watch that, because I'm not out to hurt anybody when I'm at the gym, and I'm certainly not out to dissuade anybody from working out. It's like, if an interaction with me makes the difference between whether or not somebody is training there. I would rather not train there and just let them train there, because like I said, I'm not in this to interrupt anybody's path. Although, I think you have to get kind of objective about it, and understand that for every time that you decide to go to work out, that the other person doesn't, it's not your failure to take any part of. That's theirs. They decided that they wanted to give it up. They decided they wanted to do something else, not you. And so, like I said, it's like, if an experience with me made the difference between whether or not somebody was training, I just hope it was because, and solely because, they felt like they were outclassed, or they were really wondering what they were doing there, or something like that. Because those are like normal things. I'd rather it be that than anything like, oh, I think that guy's a jerk, is blah blah blah. You know what? I'm not there to create that kind of friction with people. If it's a disagreement of like, who's the better fighter or something like that, or, as far as like MMA or something like that, those are just personal differences, and you're going to have them. But like, deep personal shit. It's like, I'm there to absorb what I can, and hopefully it'll help me figure out exactly how much of that is my responsibility, and how much of that I should be really watching out for, and wondering if, I wonder, because it's like, not every biot in any species achieves success. Some through accident or biological issue or whatever, they die before they're even born. And then some of them, they extend the expected lifespan for their species. So, and there's the myriad in between, and the differences in those experiences. I guess the best I can do is try and make it a learning experience, try not to use too much force. And that was one thing I did watch out for with this gentleman, was that there was a position I was trying to get in. I was trying to get him in a inverted armbar, but I didn't have his elbow up high enough, so I'm just like pulling against his forearm. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I held it for a moment while I disengaged my leg from around his neck and just resumed a full guard and then let it go. But the point being that, I didn't sit there and try and force this fucking armbar, do something like try and sweep him from it really hard or something like that. I'm like I said, I think to that level of conscientiousness, I think I'm doing my due diligence. I am conscientious of my partners and their health. Like the second time I did get him in a Kimura, I paused where I thought the was tight enough for him to say, yes, there's no way in hell I'm getting out of this, I can tap. And he didn't do it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And so I just slowly pushed over until he felt comfortable to tap. He tapped. I disengaged immediately. But it wasn't one of those where I snatched it up really hard and I fucking cranked it as hard as I could. Just yanked it. And I don't play that way. And it really drives me nuts when guys do that. It's like, really? We're just sparring here, man. We're not going Valley Tudo here. Now, I've had a couple of guys do that to me where, they get really, really fast and really, really aggressive on me, just trying to get me in a submitted thing, because I managed to winnow my way out of something because they didn't have it fucking secure. It's like on arm bars. I know how to move my body around to where when you were trying to seal up that armbar, and I'm not claiming this on everybody. I'm just saying that by the time the typical player that I'm rolling with is leaning back to secure the armbar, I've navigated my hips around in a way, or I've started rolling over, I've started hitchhiking. I try and keep my boy, get the fuck out of it, because I find that there's some of those positions, and the armbar is one of them, that if you get out of it the right way, you can turn it into a really dominant position and set up things like back takes and all that other stuff. But it's like you have to be that exposed to your opponent to get in that position. And so it's like, it's not one of those things that you seek out. It's those things that if you are caught near an armbar and you're able to move your hips around, or you're able to start hitchhiking, or something to that effect, you're able to pop your head up between their legs, something to that effect. If you're in that position, you got to start paying attention to, you just got to pay attention to where you are in orientation to your opponent's body, because in your process of, say, rolling out of it, you could roll them back up onto their side and, have one of those situations where they still have your wrist, but you like reach over and grab the top of their thigh, right? And secure that, and then pull it in really, really tight to you, and say maybe staple down the bottom leg or even the top leg. Get that arm disengaged, and then go up for that back take from there. But you gotta of course get the arm loose. But it's a lot easier to do it from that position. Anywho, as far as what we're going to get into today, we're going to start with some music. And so, I just want to let you know, I was doing a little bit of harvesting earlier, so it might be a little bit more baked than normal. The freshy. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with our customary first dance of body count. But what song? I think No Lives Matter. That should be it. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Clutch with In Walks Barbarella. So, as far as where we're going to go today, got a lot of stuff on the grill. And oddly enough, the first stuff that I've got is kind of related to us, I think. I think there's been a bit of a shift with regard to the number of participants or how should I say this? The number of employees that certain entities have required in order to get by. And it might be, in fact, due to blockchain that we're seeing these people being relieved of their duties, and other kinds of fuckery going on with the biggest banks in the world. Well, trading houses, banks, kind of financial services entities, without naming names, of course. But I'm sure these entities do include banks on their balance sheets. And this first one I wanted to get into is it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like a opportunistic kind of thing. Anyway, this is on Zero Hedge, and if we do find a real article for this one, we're going to go to it instead. No? Alright, so here it is. Goldman cuts 400 jobs as COVID-19 layoff moratorium ends. And this is by Tyler Durden. It was authored on September 30th, 2020 at 1700 hours. Although they won't be counted in time to be reflected in the pre-election day job numbers, the last batch of which is set to be released on Friday, a flurry of corporate layoffs in recent days has offered the latest reminder that for millions of Americans, the K-shaped recovery described by Chris Wallace last night is a reality for working people. The layoff wave continued Wednesday morning with Shell and Continental announcing thousands of layoffs, and continued into the afternoon as Goldman Sachs announced that it too would soon move along with some layoffs that had purportedly been planned before COVID-19. Shareholders might remember that Goldman CEO David Solomon has been doing a top-to-bottom review of the bank. Presumably, the roughly 400 positions, 1% of its workforce, being eliminated are part of Solomon's vision to make the bank a more consumer-focused, tech-savvy institution. Basically, it's firing investment bankers and hiring more coders. Bloomberg notes that the cuts come despite the fact that the bank's traditional deal-making and trading businesses are booming. Goldman is hardly alone. In the U.S., Wells Fargo and Citigroup were among the first to restart their planned cuts. In Europe, Deutsche Bank is moving ahead with the biggest Wall Street cull since Lehman. Solomon acknowledged the cuts over the summer, saying he would resume the cuts, quote, for the good of our shareholders. The bank is already facing immense pressure to lower costs before the coronavirus was declared a global pandemic. Quote, at the outbreak of the pandemic, the firm announced that it would suspend any job reductions, said Pat Scanlon, a spokesperson for New York-based Goldman Sachs. Quote, the firm has made a decision to move forward with a modest number of layoffs. Hopefully, the Goldman traders who got COVID-19 won't see their positions included in the cull, though right now they're probably making too much money for the firm to risk cutting loose. Then again, it doesn't exactly take a genius to reap a major windfall trading options in this market. And apparently there are some comments on this one. But yeah, I think they're being replaced by quote-unquote blockchain. And yeah, here we go. Oh, actually, there's 38 comments. My MB Bro says, or MP Bro says, Goldman Sachs has about 40,000 employees. A 400 employee layoff is barely news. This is true. Art Vandalay says, patience, the moratorium just ended. Taco Nasty says, Goldman lays off, fires their bottom 5 to 10% of performers every year. This isn't news. Let's see. Austin Milbarge says, the honest ones? Hee hee. Let's see here. Handful of Dust says, they'll have to compete with Mickey and Minnie Mice from the Disney layoffs for a job at Starbucks or in the Amazon warehouse. Charles Norwood says, they get free money from the Fed. How the hell are they still having losses? It's true. Marcosa says, a private bank creates money by credit. The poor idiot then rushes out and backs the funny coins with real goods and services by his own work, aka they would give you counterfeit inflationary banknotes and you return real backed money. Now they make money directly, no cover-up needed. Ragamuffin says, snitch phone calls to the SEC begin in 3, 2. Let's see. Sea Smoke says, ask John Corazine for a job. Cookie Puss says, isn't he in jail? Wait, never mind. Doge says, 1%, they do it every year. That seems to be a consensus opinion here. Sister Soldier says, let the enhanced unemployment bail-ins begin. Where's my free stuff, Uncle Sam? Samuel Vimes says, replies, those mortgage and rent moratoriums are lapsing too. Yep. Art Vandalay says, bon appetit. Yes. Let's see. And I don't know how to pronounce this one. It's like, they'll start writing finance blogs. You'll see them reposted here at Zero Hedge in a few weeks. Artemis Gordon says, it's unlikely Goldman can compete with top tech firms for talent. Almost every one of the top 10 wealthiest Americans created since 1980 have come from tech. Better to be the techie that brings down Goldman than to be the sheep that follow Goldman. That's damn Skippy. Deplorable replies, get rid of Bezos' salary and you will save millions of normal jobs. Cut all their salaries in half, you'll save over $250 billion, enough to pay a $50,000 average salary for more than 5 million people. Yeah. Numbnut says COVID is just the excuse. Yeah, it's been an excuse for a lot of people. Tile God says they don't need that many employees to count the stock buybacks. Oh yeah, that's true. Global List our trash says learn to code. VW Andy says Main Street lost that many jobs by 7 a.m. Yeah. VW Andy, no more room on the gravy train, and no, they won't be stopping the train for you. Just tossing you all right off to the side. Damn Skippy. VW Andy says, learn to wash shopping carts. Oh man, that's terrible. Covidiot Lover says, 400 jobs, huh? And literally they type that PFT. A handful of dust says, learn to search for loaves of bread at Saks, 5th Avenue, and the Apple Store. Yeah. Barnacle says, learn to code. Sister Soldier says, learn to farm like the Amish. Damn Skippy. Hiatus Grass says, slewing the slags. Deutsche Bank is not Wall Street Bank, it's a global scheisse bag. And that was William Bonsai 7. Yeah. Deplorable says, waiting for the pictures of Trading Desk Analysis walking out the front door with their boxes of awards and memorabilia. There you go. Big_hedge_fund says, drop Goldman, buy physical gold. I agree with that one. Ooh. And Why Am I Banned says, the Black Swan event has arrived and it has youngins. Oh, double Black Swan event. Oh shit. I don't know if I want to click on that one. Oh, let's see here. A handful of dust says, keep voting Democrat and tomorrow you too can be out of a job. Trump did not bring up the Obama-Biden administration handing China millions of American jobs. Big miss there, IMO, in my opinion. Sister Soldier says, in my state of Indiana, the furloughed employees were making close to $4,000 a month in unemployment benefits. Not a bad trade-off, I'd say. Yeah, that was always a risk, that we would see productive people that would just stay on the sidelines because they're making more in unemployment than they ever could at actual work. I don't think that threat actually goes away. Oh, let's see here. I gotta type something out. This guy. List the catalyzing events. There we go. Alright. And so, there's that side of it. And I got this other one here that it's hilarious to me, the timing of things. And it does lend credence to the idea that Goldman and these big entities do ditch their lowest performing employees, or at least the lowest 1% or 5% or 10% or whatever it is, and bouncing them to the curb. That sounds like a legitimate business policy enough for me to believe that other entities probably do it too. And so I got this thing here. It's on Zero Hedge again. More than 500 JP Morgan employees inexplicably got emergency virus relief funds. And this is by Tyler Durden. And again, September 30th, 2020. 3 weeks ago, when we first reported that JP Morgan, the bank that this week was slammed with a record settlement of nearly $1 billion when it admitted it had manipulated and spoofed the gold and treasury markets, was probing its employees' role in the abuse of PPP funds following reports of, quote, instances in which COVID relief funds were misused by customers, and is probing employees' involvement in potentially illegal activities. We said that it was about time the role of banks was put under the microscope because, quote, while it was easy to blame the administration for rushing to hand out hundreds of billions in grants/loans, without which the U.S. economy would still be in a depression, a key question is how and why did the private banks that were gatekeepers for all this capital allow such abuse to take place? A few days later, we also found out that not only did JPM employees allegedly enable fraud by clients when obtaining PPP loans, the largest U.S. bank also found that some of its employees themselves, quote, improperly applied for and received, i.e. stole, COVID relief money that was intended for legitimate U.S. businesses hurt by the pandemic. The bank discovered the actions, which were tied to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, quote, after noticing that suspicious amounts of money had been deposited into checking accounts owned by bank employees. The findings prompted an unusual all-staff message from J.P. Morgan Tuesday, which, according to Bloomberg, quote, puzzled many across the industry for its candid admission of potentially illegal acts by some of its own, while not describing what they had done. At the time, J.P. Morgan sent a memo to its roughly 256,000 employees in which senior leaders said they had seen, quote, instances of customers misusing Paycheck Protection Program loans, unemployment benefits, and other government programs, and that some employees had, quote, fallen short on ethical standards too. J.P. Morgan tried to mitigate this discovery by claiming that only a handful of its employees were abusing the program. Well, fast forward to today when we learn that more than 500 J.P. Morgan employees got assistance from taxpayers aimed at helping businesses through the pandemic, and dozens of them shouldn't have, according to Bloomberg. The discovery that so many people at the largest and most profitable U.S. bank had tapped the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program raised suspicions inside the company and set off a hasty probe on the full extent of which hasn't been previously reported. Upon discovering that hundreds of employees, clearly not the brightest ones as they used checking accounts operated by their employer into which they deposited funds meant for struggling Americans, had received government funds in their accounts, J.P. Morgan began, quote, scrutinizing director-level employees and workers who had received certain amounts. Of almost 24 in that first group, the bank found that at least 5, none of them director-level employees, had improperly tapped the program. One of the people said, "We say at least because every update on this issue reveals that more and more employees had illegally tapped the taxpayer-funded program." Amusingly, the bank concluded that of the hundreds of deposits, many were probably legitimate, providing funds, for example, to side businesses run on workers' own time. Although how a J.P. Morgan banker would have a, quote, side business that suddenly needs emergency funding is probably left best for the upcoming congressional hearings. J.P. Morgan's findings of illegal employee activity come amid a broader sweep of individual accounts that received business aid. On July 22nd, the SBA warned banks to be on the lookout for suspicious deposits or activity as part of the EIDL program. The SBA's Inspector General has also flagged evidence of fraud in the program, saying it identified more than $250 million in aid given to potentially ineligible recipients, as well as $45.6 million in possibly duplicate payments. A Bloomberg analysis of SBA data last month identified $1.3 billion in suspicious payments. As a result, prosecutors have brought charges against more than 20 businesses for fraud under the CARES Act, which authorized the PPP loan program, and a recent report by the House Committee on Oversight suggested that there could have been billions of dollars worth of fraud in the PPP program. Representative James Clyburn, a Democrat from South Carolina, called on the Inspectors General of the U.S. Treasury Department and SBA to investigate the program. Quote, "The SBA does not comment on individual borrowers. Evidence of waste, fraud, and abuse with any of the SBA's loan programs is not tolerated and should be reported. The SBA successfully distributed 5.21 million loans and $525 billion to small businesses in an unprecedented amount of time through the Paycheck Payment Program," the SBA said, misstating the name of the Paycheck Protection Program. Quote, "This is going to be the biggest fraud in government history, the magnitude of which we will not know for many years to come," said Vic Hartman, a former FBI agent and the author of a 2019 book about fraud based on lessons from his career. In retrospect, it's most surprising that only 500 JP Morgan bankers were involved. I would wager that they probably have a department that's dedicated to nothing but signing up for these programs and getting a chunk of that money. It's money. They're a bank. They want to make money. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying it's legitimate. I'm saying that it's kind of to be expected. And again, it's not right. It's not something we should accept. But yeah, let's check some of the comments on here. Shut It Down says, "Just to be clear, 500 overpaid criminal bankers stole millions that were intended for small businesses hanging on by their fingernails, who will likely close forever and face bankruptcy. This truly illustrates just how evil these despicable money changers are. But as long as you got yours, right, Jamie?" Dr. Tom says, or quotes, that some employees had fallen short on ethical standards too. Ha 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 ha. Yep. Pod says, "Yep, you gotta launder that shit. You don't just drop it in your account and then go to the ATM. Didn't they watch Ozark?" 4Y_lurker says, "Oh please, just one duffel bag of lucre or ill-gotten gains." Colonel Clink's Coast says, "Fallen short of ethical standards, but perfectly fit their standards. Validation in actions." Solid Gold says, "How did paper money become master of the universe?" It already failed one time. That's why it was made illegal for a long time, and why gold coins and silver coins were the only thing that were accepted as legal tender, and I think copper coins too. But yeah. And so let's see here. Arkrum says, "I think the only way we can get satisfaction is to start shooting them. Huh? I don't know about that." Zappa Lives says, "Bingo, all roads lead to a French-style revolution." I don't know about that. American Band says, "It pulls at the fiber, every fiber of my being, until it goes hot and the fight starts in earnest. We are all slaves." Yeah, I don't know about that. And Smoke 'em if you got 'em says, 5, 10, 20 years ago we were reading the same type of shit. Why does one think we are in this mess now? Society's fabric is held together by corruption and bullshit. Change my mind. Well, it didn't used to be that way. When people are exchanging physical coins for money, I'm sure they were a lot more honest about it. But yeah, so I've said it once and I'll say it again. They probably have a whole fucking department dedicated to this. Is all they do is look for ways that they can get more money out of the government, or get more money borrowed against you. And this is one of the reasons why crypto, I believe, is going to be absolutely necessary for a lot of people, is that we're not trusting an entity such as JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs or even the Federal Reserve to maintain the value or communicate to us a proper valuation of our coins. Because we're going to know how much it costs us to mine this shit. It's one of the reasons why the greater number of miners, the more legitimate the network is going to become. Because as soon as it's in the interests are in a greater diversity of hands, they tend to express their interests on their own behalf, rather than relying on somebody else to do it for them. And that looks a lot different than what we got going on right now, I'll tell you. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And I'm feeling like a little bit of need for some Metallica here. The Shortest Straw, here on Coin Metal. And that was the Infectious Grooves with Do the Sinister. And so, where are we going from here? Next thing I got up here is on news.bitcoin.com, and this by Kevin Helms. So yes, penis. And this is authored approximately 17 hours ago. JP Morgan admits fraud, agrees to $1 billion settlement for illegal trading. JP Morgan Chase has admitted to fraud charges and agreed to settle with the U.S. Department of Justice, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and the Securities and Exchange Commission. The firm has agreed to pay nearly $1 billion in penalties and victim compensation. JP Morgan's fraud cases. The U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, and the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, announced separate actions against the New York-based global banking and financial services firm JP Morgan Chase & Co. and several of its subsidiaries on Tuesday. According to the agencies, JP Morgan has admitted to fraud charges and agreed to settlements to resolve criminal charges against it. The Justice Department explained that criminal charges against JP Morgan Chase relate to two distinct schemes to defraud. Quote, the first involving tens of thousands of episodes of unlawful trading in the markets for precious metals futures contracts, and the second involving thousands of episodes of unlawful trading in the markets for U.S. Treasury, the DOJ announcement details. The CFTC independently issued an order charging and settling with JP Morgan Chase & Co. and its subsidiaries, JP Morgan Chase Bank and JP Morgan Securities, quote, for manipulative and deceptive conduct in spoofing that spanned 8 years and involved hundreds of thousands of spoof orders in precious metals and U.S. Treasury futures contracts on the Commodity Exchange, Inc., the New York Mercantile Exchange, and the Chicago Board of Trade, the CFTC detailed, quote, JPM is required to pay a total of $920.2 million, the largest amount of monetary relief ever imposed by the CFTC. This total amount includes the highest restitution, disgorgement, and civil monetary penalty amounts in any spoofing case, the agency added, quote, For nearly a decade, a significant number of J.P. Morgan traders and sales personnel openly disregarded U.S. laws that serve to protect against illegal activity in the marketplace. Assistant Director William F. Sweeney, Jr. of FBI's New York field office commented, quote, J.P. Morgan Chase & Co. agreed to pay nearly $1 billion in penalties and victim compensation. And just to note their fraud caused losses in the hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars, by people that are involved in the physical metal markets. Continuing on. In addition, the Securities and Exchange Commission issued an order charging J.P. Morgan Securities, quote, for fraudulently engaging in manipulative trading of U.S. Treasury securities, according to the SEC. Quote, J.P. Morgan Securities admitted the findings in the SEC's order and agreed to pay a disgorgement of $10 million and a civil penalty of $25 million to settle the action. What do you think of JP Morgan's fraudulent activities? Let us know in the comments section below, and let's see if anybody did, which they may have. And it does not seem that anyone has yet. This just exemplifies a small, teeny tiny amount of the fraudulent activity that goes on. This happened. This went on for over a decade, probably closer to 2 decades, and yet the DOJ and the CFTC and the SEC, they're just now getting around to busting these guys. And these are an entirely regulated entity. They've been reporting on their income. They've been reporting on their portfolio this entire time, supposedly. And yet they've been getting away with this. And at the same time, these are the same people that are lobbying for us to get highly regulated. And we can tell down to the Satoshi how much it's worth. At any one time, we can tell down to the Satoshi how much we can pay for it with what, or at least with Bitcoin. And you've got these guys, no such transparency on their books, commingling customer funds left and right, and they only get busted like once every decade or so, and even then it's just a little paltry pittance by comparison to what it costs the actual physical market. You, the market. Me, the market. I am the market. You are the market. When they talk about things impacting the market, they're talking about shit that impacts you and me and everybody else out there, except for, of course, unless you're JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. And then mysteriously everybody kind of looks the other way while you're doing your shenanigans. And this just further exemplifies it. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's one of the reasons why I was attracted to Bitcoin to begin with, is that the people, the nodes, the individual miners, and I think there should be far more of them than there currently are, they are the people that run the network, because they are the network. There is no intermediary between you and them. When you become a participant on the network, when you become a node, when you become a miner, you're in tune with the happenings on the blockchain or on the Bitcoin network. And again, there's no JP Morgan there or Goldman Sachs or even Federal Reserve to tell you what your work is worth. But yeah, so JP Morgan abusing trust again in a highly regulated and supposedly in a fully compliant way, manages to defraud the economy of billions of dollars, gets tagged for $1 billion in fees or fines. But of course, we're not, without crime here in crypto. Despite all of the transparency, there's still plenty of room for your imagination to get ahead of you and your stupidity to win out when it comes to making a decision on how you should invest your money or your time. I got this thing here. It's on Coindesk.com. SEC alleges big talking Florida crypto investor defrauded clients of $6.8 million. And let's see this is by Danny Nelson. So yes, penis. A Florida crypto trader has been charged with duping $6.8 million from investors in his purported digital asset day trading shop. Oh, this one's full of fucking bullet points. Dude, don't do this. Just write a regular fucking article. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission alleged in its Tuesday complaint, which we're probably just going to go directly to and circumvent all this bullshit. See how big it is. It's only 15 pages. We can do it. And I'm actually at sec.gov, and this is the United States District Court, Southern District of Florida, Securities and Exchange Commission plaintiff V.S. Thomas Giddy Jr., defendant, and Thomas Giddy Jr., Treasure Coast Property Enterprises, LLC, relief defendants. Complaint for injunctive and other relief. Plaintiff Securities and Exchange Commission alleges. Introduction. Number 1. From at least January 2018 to at least January 2019, Thomas J. Giddy Sr. Giddy received at least $6.8 million from at least 18 investors who invested on the basis of his representations that he was a highly profitable digital asset trader and had never lost money during a trading day. Number 2. Giddy, a convicted felon with no known professional financial industry experience, made material misrepresentations to investors about the success of his trading, the risks of his investment, and ultimately the cause of investor losses. Based on Giddy's false and misleading statements, investors believed that Giddy pooled investor funds in trading accounts over which he exercised exclusive control, managed digital assets worth in excess of $100 million, and achieved weekly returns as high as 46.83% with no market risks. In reality, of the $6.8 million that Giddy received from investors, less than $970,000 was deposited in digital asset trading accounts. The limited trading that Giddy did perform did not achieve the profits he claimed to generate. Number 4. Giddy used the digital trading asset accounts that he controlled to funnel investor funds to his own personal bank account and bank accounts controlled by his son, Thomas Giddy Jr. The balance of investor funds that Giddy did not transfer to digital asset trading accounts was misappropriated or distributed to investors in Ponzi-like fashion. 5. Giddy spent investor funds on personal expenses, including for gambling and to make Ponzi-like distributions to investors. To conceal his fraudulent scheme, Giddy falsely represented that the trading account, which he falsely claimed contained in excess of $100 million in value, was no longer accessible to him because, among other reasons, it was disabled by the digital asset firm where he claimed the account was held. 6. Relief defendants Giddy Jr. and Treasury Coast Property Enterprises, LLC. Treasury Coast is a company which Giddy Jr. controlled, received investor assets and proceeds of Giddy's securities violations without any legitimate entitlement to the funds. Through his conduct, Giddy violated the anti-fraud provisions of federal securities laws. Based on the egregious nature of Giddy's violations, he has shown that he will violate the law including further dissipating investor funds unless the court grants the injunctive and other relief the commission seeks against him. Defendant. Giddy is a resident of Port Lucie, Florida, and is retired. Before he retired, Giddy was the principal of Booster Club Card, Inc., which purportedly provides fundraising services to schools and other organizations. He has never been registered with the Commission in any capacity. He has 2 Rhode Island felony convictions in 1994 for racketeering, operating an organized crime gambling business, and conspiracy, for which he served time in prison, and in 2000 for embezzlement, for which he received 10 years probation. He has not been licensed or registered with the Commission and has not been associated with any registered entity. He has no known professional financial industry experience. That doesn't mean much, especially if he's a crypto investor. Relief defendants. 10. Giddy Jr. is a resident of Port Lucie, Florida, and is currently the principal of Booster Club Card, Inc. He has never been registered with the Commission in any capacity. He is the title holder of 2 houses purchased with investor funds. 11. Treasure Coast is a Florida limited liability company with its principal place of business in Fort Lucie, Florida. Giddy Jr. is the only officer of the company. Treasury Coast is the title holder of 3 houses purchased with investor funds. Jurisdiction and venue. This court has jurisdiction over this action pursuant to sections 20B and 20D and 22A of the Securities Act of 1933, 15 U.S.C. 77T subsection B, 77T subsection D, and 77V subsection A, and sections 21D, 21E, 27A of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. This court has personal jurisdiction over Giddy, and venue is proper in the Southern District of Florida because many of Giddy's acts and transactions constituted violations of the Securities Act and Exchange Act occurred in the Southern District of Florida. In addition, at all times relevant to the complaint, Giddy and Giddy Jr. resided in the Southern District of Florida, and Treasure Coast had its principal place of business in this district. In connection with the conduct alleged in this complaint, Giddy, directly or indirectly, singularly, or in concert with others, has made use of the means or instrumentalities of interstate commerce, the means or instruments of transportation and communication in interstate commerce, or of the mails. Giddy's acts in violation of the securities laws. A. The securities transactions. 15. In or around January 2018, Giddy told an acquaintance, the investor, that he had learned how to successfully trade digital assets, that he had never lost money during a trading day, and that he could triple her principal investment. Based on those representations, investor decided to invest. 16. Giddy and investor reached an oral agreement under which Giddy agreed to use his purported digital asset expertise to trade investors' funds in digital assets. They agreed that Giddy would keep 20% of all trading profits and investor would keep the remainder. In January of 2018, investor made her first investment of $12,000, which Giddy deposited into his personal bank account. 17. Giddy updated investor at least weekly on the purported performance of her investment. Based on Giddy's representations, however, based on Giddy's representations, investor believed that Giddy's trading generated massive profits. In turn, investor introduced Giddy to multiple new investors between January 2018 and December of 2018. 18. Giddy entered into oral agreements with some investors and entered into written joint ventures agreements with others under which he agreed to use investor funds for the, quote, purposes of completing Bitcoin transactions. Under those agreements, investors were entitled to a percentage of the purported net profits, generally between 50 and 80%, and Giddy was entitled to the remainder. 19. In the written agreements, Giddy represented that, quote, he has never had a day in his previous 2 years of trading Bitcoin that the amount is closed negative for that day. He also represented that, quote, there is no risk to capital being invested as all trades have automatic sell prices at each buy-in price. Okay. 20. By December 2018, Giddy had received approximately $6.8 million from at least 18 investors. Investors relied on Giddy's claimed expertise in digital asset trading and believed that any investor profits would come solely from Giddy's ability to generate returns. The oral and written agreements that Giddy entered into with investors are, quote, investment contracts and therefore securities within the meaning of Section 2A1 of the Securities Act and Section 3A10 of the Exchange Act, 15 U.S.C. 77B, subsection A, subsection 1, and 78C, subsection A10. B. The material misrepresentation and omissions. Never heard of that before. 22. Based on Giddy's representations, investors believed that Giddy's trading was enormously profitable. At least monthly and often weekly, Giddy prepared for certain investors what he described as, quote, portfolio statements. These statements displayed, among other information, the purported U.S. dollar value of digital assets that he traded for the investor and the purported U.S. dollar value of the combined digital assets that he managed for all investors, including himself. Number 23. Giddy created the portfolio statements by using a mobile phone application called CoinStats. Specifically, Giddy manually entered purported balance and profit information from the digital asset trading accounts into the CoinStats application and then took screenshots on his mobile phone of the portfolio statements, which displayed the information he entered. He sent these screenshots directly to investors via text message or in some cases asked the investor to do so on his behalf. An example of a screenshot is attached as Exhibit A. 24. The information that Giddy conveyed to investors in these screenshots was fabricated. Giddy represented to investors that the assets in his trading account increased from $9,378,585 on October 14, 2018 to $100,921,738 on or around January 6, 2019, and that his trading achieved weekly trading profits as high as 46.83%. Although the screenshot showing the $100,921,738 balance is dated January 6, 2019, Giddy would later claim that he lost access to the trading account on December 28, 2019. Giddy generated the misleading screenshots to deceive investors into believing his trading achieved extraordinary profits and to increase additional investments, or to induce additional investments. In turn, investors invested on the basis of the fabricated profits claimed by Giddy. In reality, less than $970,000 of the approximately $6.8 million that Giddy received from investors was transferred to trading accounts, and the profits that Giddy claimed were fictitious. 27. Investors believed that, and Giddy testified that he held or traded investor assets on 3 digital asset platforms: Coinbase, Binance, and BitMEX. But in Giddy's Coinbase account, the net balance between January 2018 and January 2019 increased by only $10,000 or $10,136, and in his Binance account, the net balance between January 2018 and December 2018 decreased by approximately $170,000. Giddy has produced no documentation that he held any account at BitMEX, let alone an account with a $100 million balance. Giddy testified that he does not recall receiving any documents that would prove that he opened a BitMEX account except for a welcome email, which he probably deleted. 28. Giddy also misled investors about the risks of investing in his trading venture. During the relevant period, Giddy entered into, quote, joint venture agreements with investors under which he represented that, quote, there is no risk in the capital being invested, as all trades have automatic sell prices at each buy-in price, and that as a result, quote, the downside of the investor's capital is always protected. Yeah, whatever. In fact, there were enormous risks to investor capital. Giddy used the digital asset trading accounts that he controlled to funnel investor funds into his own personal bank account and bank accounts controlled by Giddy Jr. Of the approximately $6.8 million in capital invested, Giddy misappropriated at least $4.2 million and distributed the remaining $2.6 million to investors in Ponzi-like fashion. Although Giddy did place some orders in his digital asset trading accounts, these orders did not always have an automatic sell price. As a result, the downside was not, quote, always protected. Giddy's misrepresentations were intended to induce additional investments and to keep existing investors from requesting redemptions. 31. Giddy's scheme began to fall apart in December 2018 when several investors elected to take a distribution of around $5 million. Giddy told investors through investor as intermediary that he withdrew the requested funds and would disperse them during the first few days of January 2019. When the investors did not receive the distribution, they, along with the investor, attempted to contact Giddy by phone and through social media. He did not respond and, by all appearances, had absconded. On or around January 7, 2019, Giddy sent the investors a letter in which he attempted to lull them. The letter explained that several months ago we moved all investments to the BitMEX platform. Giddy claimed that trading on BitMEX continued as normal until 2 weeks ago when he discovered that he was unable to log into the account containing investor funds. Giddy claimed that the login failure could be the result of, number 1, some harmless error on the BitMEX platform, perhaps complicated by the intervening holidays, number 2, the account and or BitMEX having been hacked by an outside source, or number 3, the action of BitMEX itself to close the account. In the letter, Giddy claimed that he, quote, made every effort to discover the cause of the issues, but to date has not been successful. These were lies. Giddy has not produced documentation showing that he had taken any steps whatsoever to recover the investor funds, which according to Giddy were worth in excess of $100 million on or around January 6, 2019. Neither has Giddy produced any documentation that he even opened an account at BitMEX. The digital asset and bank account records produced to the Commission do not show any transfers of fiat currency or digital assets to any account at BitMEX. For its part, BitMEX was unable to find any wallets on its platform with a balance above $90 million during the time period from December 25, 2018 to January 6, 2019. The cause of the investor losses was not BitMEX or hackers, as his letter claimed, but Giddy himself. C. The misappropriation of investor funds. Giddy misappropriated at least $4.2 million of the approximate $6.8 million invested in personal expenses, including gambling, and distributed the remaining $2.6 million to investors in Ponzi-like fashion. Of the $4.2 million that Giddy had misappropriated, he transferred approximately $1.8 million to accounts controlled by Giddy Jr. Giddy Jr. used the investor proceeds to, among other things, purchase 5 houses, 2 in his name and 3 in the name of Treasure Coast in Port Lucie, Florida, in late 2018 and early 2019. An associate of Giddy Jr. purchased a 6th house in Port St. Lucie, Florida, with investor funds and subsequently transferred it to Giddy via a quiet claim. A quitclaim deed, whatever that is. Claims for relief. Violation of Section 17A, subsection 1 of the Securities Act. The Commission adopts by reference paragraphs 1 through 34 of this complaint from at least January 2018 to at least January 2019. Giddy in the offer or sale of securities by use of any means or instruments of transportation or communication in interstate commerce, or by use of the mails, directly or indirectly, knowingly or recklessly employed devices, schemes, or artifices to defraud. By reason of the foregoing, Giddy violated and, unless enjoined, is reasonably likely to continue to violate Section 17A, subsection 1 of the Securities Act. Count 2, violation of Section 17A, subsection 2 of the Securities Act. The Commission adopts by reference paragraphs 1 through 34 of this complaint from at least January 2018 to at least January 2019, Giddy in the offer or sale of securities by use of any means or instruments of transportation or communication in interstate commerce, or by use of mails, directly or indirectly, negligently obtain money or property by means of untrue statements of material facts and omissions to state material facts necessary in order to make these statements made in the light of these circumstances under which they were made, not misleading. And we're not going to go through the rest of the counts because there are several of them. But yeah, apparently this guy, I would bet there's one little place where there's a possibility of a shred of truth going on here. And it's because there was a period of time when U.S. investors could actually trade on the BitMEX platform, and then for whatever reason we were cut off. And people have been logging into it and whatever via VPN. But the point being that there is a possibility that he had made the $100 million on the account. He was blocked out of the account due to the geo-lock on BitMEX against U.S. customers. And then, he wasn't able to get the funds. And BitMEX, they're $100 million ahead if all they do is say, nope, we don't have any records of this dude. So you gotta wonder. You gotta wonder if there is some reality to his claim that he did have an account at BitMEX that was worth over $100 million, but due to regulatory enforcement by the SEC, CFTC, whoever else, against BitMEX, had caused him to lose access to the funds. It's entirely possible. It's happened before. Now, whether or not other individuals had been made whole before then or after then, I couldn't tell you, but from the looks of this, at least in my eyes, I think there's enough plausible reality there that it's plausible that he had actually had the funds invested there and then lost access to them due to actions by the U.S. government. Yeah, it's possible. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And I want to go with Vola here in Mazes here on Coin Metal. And that was Iron Maiden with Another Life. And it is with that I'd like to bring this episode to a close. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, I have not picked anything out. But I don't know, given what we've been talking about today, how there's kind of like no real safe harbor out there when it comes to investing, I got this one. Kingdom of Sorrow, God's Law in the Devil's Land. Last Dance here in Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. Good night.